One thing I've always liked about Nintendo compared to all the other console companies out there is they've always just been really affordable, you know, in a way that...
Yeah.
Oh. Well.
How much did it go up by?
$40. It's tough for me to justify a price increase regardless of any tariff situation this late into any console's life cycle. The Nintendo Switch came out at $299, which I think was actually a pretty good deal at the time, especially when you consider the fact that Nintendo Switch wasn't exactly cutting-edge hardware when it came out, and now that they're raising the price from $299 to $340 for the base model, and the OLED model is $400, why would you buy a Nintendo?
Also, don't forget, it's not just the Nintendo Switch and OLED models that went up. It's also the Joy-Cons and the Nintendo Switch Pro controller, both going up by $10.
When I was a kid, Nintendo was a company that you could bank on to be able to get very affordable games that were always really good. And I mean really, really good. When you bought a Nintendo game that was considered like a AAA Nintendo game, it was basically like a seal of approval that meant that there was something about that game and that company that you couldn't get anywhere else. And that's just not true anymore. Nintendo games used to be $60 and they used to be amazing experiences. And I'm not saying that the new games that are coming out for $80 are a complete waste of money, although I kind of think no game is worth $80, but it doesn't have that magic anymore. And I think Nintendo was already ruining a lot of good graces with a lot of consumers with the $80 games that you don't even own a physical copy of anymore. Looking at you, Mario Kart World. But now with this new price increase for the Nintendo Switch 1, I think I'm just... You know what? I just have to say it.
What?
I'm about to say the most controversial take on the internet right now.
Uh-oh.
I do not think Nintendo should have raised the price for the Switch 1. Basically, every single console that's been over 3 years of age before this generation of consoles has gotten cheaper. So what do I mean by that? When the PlayStation 2 was 3 years old, it got cheaper. When the PlayStation 3 was 3 years old, it got cheaper. The Xbox 360, one of the greatest selling consoles of all time, also got cheaper when it got to around the 3U mark. The Nintendo Switch is 8 years old now.
Yes, it
and
is.
This is the first time I have seen an 8-year-old console. This is the first time that I've seen an 8-year-old console that could barely run games for the past 2 years at 15 frames per second decide to have a 15% price increase.
Yep, I'm looking at you, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Did you like dragging your character in a Microsoft Paint spreadsheet? That's what that game was. I know I stuttered there, but I'm right.
Back in the day, there was real value to be had if you were actually going to wait until the console reached the end of its life cycle before you decide to go in and jump and purchase it. One of the biggest things is that the games were way cheaper. That's not really the case anymore, especially with Nintendo. You look at Sony and Microsoft, a bunch of games that are only a year old you can get on half off. Now, there's another conversation to be had there why some of those games are already on such steep sales, but the point that I want to make for this video is that if you look at Mario Odyssey, which released in 2017, which admittedly was a fun game, right? It was a fun game.
Yeah.
I like jumping, you like jumping, you know. He's a round man such as myself, so I enjoy it. I felt like that audience, I felt like I was the target audience for that, right? It was a fun game. Here's the point, right? When that game came out, what do you think the price of that was in 2017? $60, that's right.
Yeah.
If you go on to
Market standard.
If you go on to the Nintendo Switch 1 store right now, in 2025, how much do you think that game costs?
The logical man would say $35.
That's a great guess. I promise you it's not that.
I'm gonna say $60.
It's still $60.
What a surprise.
And that's the thing. It's like when you go to like even physical stores, you find that Nintendo games, the big party Nintendo games, are at most only $5 off. There's no other big company that I've ever seen still charge full price for games that are nearly a decade old. And I don't see this ending anywhere soon. I mean, now with the Nintendo Switch 2, you don't even own your games. You get a card that gives you a code to download your game off the internet. I have no idea what is going on with Nintendo. It's like they have done everything that they could in the last couple months to completely get rid of all the goodwill that they painstakingly earned over the past 6 or 7 years with the Nintendo Switch.
And you know, it's one of those things where it's so outrageous that I just have to take my glasses off for this. Maybe that was Nintendo's plan all along, to stop the production of the Switch, increase the price on it, and force you into going. I'm gonna buy the Nintendo Switch 2.
At the end of the day, you get to do whatever you want with your money. But if you're watching this video and you're a Nintendo fan, and for some reason you haven't bought a Nintendo Switch at this point in its life cycle, I don't see any valid reason to buy one at this point. The only thing that Nintendo said as being a reason why they are changing the price of the Switch 1 is for market factors, but they didn't say what the market factors were. So I would assume, like any other person that's been following politics to any capacity, that it has to do with tariffs. It doesn't make sense to me to do that, because who's gonna buy a Switch 1 at this point?
Yeah.
How many Switch 1s are you still even manufacturing that there's even a valid reason to raise the price? Even if it is more expensive to make the hardware now, who's gonna buy the Switch 1 at this point?
Exactly.
The Nintendo Switch 1, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, does have some really good games for it. Some of the games are so good that Nintendo is giving you the opportunity to buy the game that you already own again for an additional $10 on the Switch 2. So if you are a die-hard Nintendo fan, I'm not telling you not to go buy a Nintendo Switch for an increased price if for some reason you don't have a Switch at this point. I'm just saying, in my opinion, it makes zero sense to increase the price of the Nintendo Switch in 2025 when the reality is it's not very likely that there's going to be a lot more consoles sold or even developed, especially with the Switch 2 just starting to ramp up. Especially when you consider the fact that if you're going to buy a Switch OLED model in particular, you might as well just buy a Switch 2 at that point, because it's almost the exact same price, and one's going to give you the opportunity of at least having some new games to look forward to for a while.
Thank you so much for watching this video today. If you liked this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.